Good evening, everyone. How are you today? Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dr. JJ Rollinson, and I'm the Senior Manager of Community Partnerships and Welfare Initiatives at Wallace Annenberg PetSpace. We are so excited to bring you the first of a two-part wellness workshop. This series is directly designed to help strengthen the human-animal bond between you and your pets through the guidance of animal experts who explore practical, everyday issues for pet parents. Today, we are really excited to host Dr. Margie Scherk. Sorry, there's a bit of an echo in my ear. It's a little bit hard for me. I don't know if there's a
path where I'm hearing my voice like 3 times. We are so excited to host Dr. Margie Scherk, whose many accomplishments include founder of the Cats Only Veterinary Clinic and role as the North American editor of the Journal of Feline Medicine and Surgery. She will be sharing useful advice for optimizing the life of our indoor cats. We'll begin with her presentation, and then we'll have time for a Q&A session afterwards. So if you wouldn't mind holding your questions until the end, that would be great.
Before we begin, just a quick reminder that we resumed offering in-space programming here at PetSpace and adoptions by appointment. So please check out annenbergpetspace.org for more details. Now, I am so pleased to introduce Dr. Margie Scherk. She pioneered the use of the transdermal fentanyl patch for the alleviation of pain in companion animals. She has collaborated and co-authored several papers, including a chapter for 2 editions of Ettinger and Feldman's textbook of veterinary internal medicine. In addition, she founded the Feline Internal Medicine folder on the Veterinary Information Network, and she has grown to love teaching veterinarians, vet students, and veterinary care providers, both online and around the world. I know I have sought out her advice many times for feline cases, and I'm really pleased to have her here with us today. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Scherk.
Well, it is indeed a pleasure to be here. It was just a few weeks ago, I think, where I got to enjoy with hopefully some of you the presentation, learned lots from Dr. Kate Hurley from the Korat Shelter Medicine Program at the University of California, Davis, when she presented about cats and birds, which is a pretty hot topic indeed. So it's
there's lots and of here, particularly in Vancouver.
Yeah, lots of controversy there. So, anyways, it was fascinating, her presentation. So, without any further ado, I'm just going to share my screen and get my face out of the way, which is what I would like to do. Share, and we'll switch over to a slideshow here for you. So as JJ has said, today I'm going to talk to you about the optimizing the life of the indoor cat. Because while we have all considered for a long time, at least on this side of the Atlantic, that keeping cats indoors is the responsible thing to do, and that it is the best way to keep cats safe, it isn't seen that way in all countries. The International Cat Care, which is based out of the United Kingdom, and is the sort of the parent organization of the International Society of Feline Medicine, we're sister groups, the American Association of Feline Medicine and the ISFM. Anyways, they have this amazing website that I highly recommend you check out. And in there they have blogs. And this blog, which was published September 2019, was all about indoor only or outdoor access. And there are indeed quite dramatic cultural differences. In the United Kingdom, the majority of cats are allowed to go outside, and it's actually considered to be inhumane to keep cats strictly indoors. And if you look at the rest of Europe, many parts of Europe hold also that the indoor-outdoor lifestyle is healthier for cats. If we go to South Africa, where there's all kinds of interesting creatures, albeit not so much in the cities themselves, but there too, people do keep their cats indoors and outdoors, and may, if they're in a risky area, use an enclosure for their cat so that they can indeed go outside. In Melbourne, Australia, actually that pin should be a little further south there, less than a quarter of the feline population is housed mainly indoors. And in New Zealand, most cats go outside as well. So we're an oddity in the world, in North America, that more than half of the cats are confined indoors. So what are the benefits or the belief that we have, the benefits of the indoor lifestyle, that we reduce the risk from multiple infectious diseases, most notably FIV, rabies, to some degree feline leukemia virus, but FIV, feline immunodeficiency virus. Feline leukemia viruses can actually be spread very nicely in the homes. It's generally spread between cats who actually get along rather than through fighting. And parasites can also occur in indoor cats, but we certainly being outside exposes cats to more parasites, both internal parasites as well as external parasites like fleas and ticks. Certainly getting into a car accident, being hit by a car, getting into a fight or with another cat or other animals, maybe even being killed by another animal, falling out of a tree or off of a roof, getting lost, being stolen, being exposed to terrible things like antifreeze or rodenticides, rat poisons, eating food that you're not providing, and it may be, in fact, when I say unapproved, it may be your cat needs a special diet, but they're noshing and snacking at the neighbors and eating whatever's being fed there. And of course, if they've not been sterilized, then pregnancy is, of course, a risk as well. So we have long held that, the responsible way to keep your cat safe is to keep them indoors. And so if I could see all your hands, or if we had set this up for polling, which we haven't, I would be, asking you what the preferred, whether you or in your practice, assuming there are veterinary personnel involved, or who've signed on as well, what is the preferred housing in your area? And that may be indoors only, it may be indoors and out, or it may be indoors with protected outdoor access. So here if we think about with people, a lot of attention has been paid these days on mental health because of COVID, because of the pandemic. And the old concept of cabin fever has come back to be talked about. And cabin fever is a series of emotions or symptoms that we experience when we're confined to our homes for extended periods of time. And this may be due to a variety of circumstances, such as a natural disaster, lack of transportation, or social distancing due to COVID. And the symptoms of cabin fever include lethargy, sadness or depression, trouble concentrating, lack of patience, food cravings, know that one, decreased motivation, difficulty waking, frequent napping, hopelessness, a sense of that. And so the question that I have to you is, might our indoor cats be experiencing that sort of thing as well? When you remember that cats have not been bred to be indoors 24 hours a day or to be exposed to people as much as they are. When we think about who and what a cat is, they are very, very bright and they are constantly solving problems. They have to solve problems because in order to hunt, the birds that fly up, they have to try and prevent that from happening. Rodents run into holes, they need to prevent that from happening. They have to sneak up. And so in other words, what they're constantly doing is they have to develop strategy and then change that on the run, i.e. With tactics. So their cats' territories, cats are territorial, it's true, and their territories are based on availability of resources. And the resources being food, water, litter, mates, because in under non-pet circumstances, cats breed, and food, water, litter, scratching surfaces, and they use scent. Their scent glands, either from their cheeks or they use their urine. They'll mark by rubbing, all these sorts of things in order to define the boundaries and protect their resources. And their best way of surviving is to avoid contact with threats because they are very, very small predators. In fact, everybody else is a threat to them. Even similarly sized creatures, coyotes or dogs can take down even a crow or birds larger than that. Cats are only predators relative to small birds and to smaller rodents. So they avoid contact with threats with each other, so they don't get into fights by having defined their areas, and they observe. They avoid ambush, and and generally they live alone unless they are. It's a colony type situation, a farm situation where they're closely related. So they are both predator and prey. So if we think about, well, what's best for cats? What's the best way what do we need to do to keep them well? We have to be looking at what are normal feline behaviors. And normal feline behaviors are listed here. Cats are very playful. They investigate, they observe, they hunt and they eat, they drink, they scratch surfaces, they travel, they scent mark, they eliminate, so urinating and defecating, they rest, they sleep. And the resting and sleeping are two different things. We may think of cats as sleeping an awful lot, but in fact, cats rest a lot in between doing things. And if they're doing a lot of sleeping, it may be out of boredom. So are we meeting their needs? What are the 5 freedoms? There's these things called 5 freedoms of animal welfare, so to determine whether we're meeting their needs. And the 5 freedoms were developed in the United Kingdom initially under to define animal welfare or animal rights for animals under human control, particularly for food producing animals, for farm animals. But then they were modified somewhat to include our companion animals, our small companion animals, horses also being companion animals. And they are, freedom from hunger and thirst. And certainly, regardless of who we are, we provide water and food for however our cat lives. We provide water and food for them. And it should be good food, healthful food for them. Freedom from discomfort is the second freedom. And by that, but we need to provide an appropriate environment, including shelter and a comfortable resting area. And we all do that, but I'll come back to the appropriateness of our environments. Freedom from pain, injury, and disease, either to prevent that or to diagnose and treat it, alleviate it very quickly. Freedom to express normal behaviors by providing enough space, proper facilities, and in the case of other animals, not so much with cats, making sure that there are other individuals of the same species there for them. Cats don't necessarily like having other cats around. Some would tolerate it, but they would rather be on their own. Little poopers that way. Freedom from fear and distress. And so that ensuring conditions and treatment which avoid mental suffering. In not too long ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, it was 4.5 years ago, the American Animal Hospitalists, the American Association of Feline Practitioners had a presentation on feline behavior. The whole meeting was on feline behavior and respiratory diseases. And one of the presenters, Sarah Heath, who is a renowned British veterinary behaviorist, and she's absolutely brilliant, said that cats have some fundamental behavioral requirements, which include a sensation of control. Maybe you've noticed that about your cat. They like to be in control or feel as if they're in control. Another requirement is free and immediate access to important resources when required. Remember, resources are those things: food, water, sleeping areas, observation posts, vantage posts, etc. The provision of privacy. Cats are generally, while there are certainly differences in personality, many cats, in fact, most cats are really introverted, and having the ability to escape from or avoid potential stress. So they operate under things are going to go badly mode, belief, and then that way they're ready at any time to deal with that. So they're constantly living with a little bit of stress. And you think, well, how can that be with our cats who they have food, they live the life of luxury, they don't have to go to work, they don't even scoop their own litter boxes. I mean, how bad can that be? Well, are we in fact meeting their needs? What is stress? Well, stress is a condition in which predictability and control are compromised. You know how if you don't feel like you're able to control what's going on at work, and or it's like too boringly predictable, or things, if you've got a boss who changes their mood every 5 seconds, or a coworker, that's stressful. Or if you've got, an environmental demand exceeds the natural ability to control, to deal with it, where you can kind of exhale and, okay, I can deal with this. This is fine. So a stressor is a stimulus that induces this state, and the response components to stress are threefold. There's health, in which case we have the physical, there's the physical aspects, that's the physiology. Then we have the behavioral or social aspects, and then we have the psychological or mental aspects, mental, emotional, however you want to use that term. It's pretty vague. Stress is, of course, very individual, just as it is with us. Some of us can cope with things, better than others that are going on, specific things. And the stress response depends on the type of stress, the quality and the intensity of that stress, how often it occurs, and the perception. So, for instance, if you just assume that, yeah, Mondays are going to suck at work, and you go in and Mondays suck, it's not as stressful, because you've already expected that. Or maybe it is because you hate it that much. So unpredictability and loss of control are really key. And this diagram shows on the left-hand side that there's always some background stress. And then you have in pink some specific stress. So you're doing your work and you're under the time stress. You've got a deadline you have to meet. And then there's a specific stress. Somebody puts more stuff on your desk, but you can still cope with it. It's still within your coping capacity. But then if you move to the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that now the background stress is worse, because not only do you have a whole bunch of stuff to do, but you also have a job performance appraisal, and everybody's off of work, so you're working 3 times as many jobs. And so now when somebody comes in and puts that extra folder on your desk, you lose it, because it's out. You no longer have the capacity to cope with that. So Dr. Tony Buffington, who I hope you've heard of, because he has absolutely been a visionary and a game changer in veterinary medicine and the health of cats, and also in people too. He wrote this article way back, now almost 30 years ago? Good Lord. No, 20 years ago. And it was on the external and internal influences on disease risk in cats. And he says that at the beginning of this article, he says, although studies of comparative mortality between indoor housed cats and those who are with permitted access to the outdoors are not available in the North American veterinary literature, indoor housed cats are thought by many to be at reduced risk. And in fact, not only do we not have that data, but what we know is that may not be the comparisons where you say, oh yeah, indoor cats live way longer than cats who go outside. You're not comparing apples and apples, because a lot of that data comes from the free roaming, non-owned, I hate the word owned, but non-owned cat. And therefore, if that cat is not vaccinated, doesn't receive parasite control, isn't well nourished, it doesn't have a safe place to sleep, etc., sure, their life expectancy is going to be a lot shorter. But that's not comparing cats with homes who are either strictly indoors or who have homes and have the opportunity to go outside as well. So we actually don't know that. Now, the indoor cat experiences a lot of monotony. Just again, this is the whole cabin fever thing. There's an overly predictable environment. You think we've had since last March, Groundhog Day. They have this day in and day out for their whole lives. They have no opportunity to solve problems, to hunt, or to protect themselves. And those things are stimulating. So we've got this whole thing, but isn't it better for them? Well, cats haven't been selectively bred to be indoors 24 hours a day, and many just don't adjust to living in close company with contact with people. Their ability to adjust depends on certain things, so genetics, as well as successful early socialization. So what conditions can be associated with stress from indoor only living? Let's look at some of those things. And let's look at the signs of stress and anxiety. Certainly any changes in a cat's appetite, in grooming themselves, calling out more, hiding, being more vigilant and watchful, maybe being aggressive, a little short-tempered, maybe spraying urine or over-grooming themselves or over-grooming you or over-grooming another individual in the house, another cat maybe. Decreased activity, decreased play, decreased exploration, decreased inquisitiveness, just not caring, and decreased affiliative, meaning friendly interactions with people and other animals, and facial marking can go up or down. So certainly there could be these behavioral changes, but physical ailments, do cats who stay indoors, actually strictly indoors, are they at greater risk for illness? Well, as a matter of fact, they are. So the disparity between physical and psychological stressors is an illusion. Host defense mechanisms respond in adaptive and meaningful ways to both. So potential adverse effects, if somebody's bored, they just eat more, they don't work out as much. If that's the case, they are more likely to become obese. And if they're predisposed to diabetes, then they can develop diabetes. I'm talking about cats now. Okay, they may start expressing problem behaviors, namely those things that we don't like. They're not actually abnormal behaviors from a cat's point of view. Spraying urine to mark or scratching something is completely normal normal thing for cats to do, for them to be able to cope, but we don't like it. So there's problem behaviors as opposed to behavior problems, in which behavior problems are those things where the cat's actually damaging themselves. So over grooming, chewing on their tail, doing that sort of thing. So again, at the American Association of Feline Practitioner Conference, Drs. Ellis and Rodin said that the relationship between stress and disease is interrelated. While chronic stress can be a significant cause of disease, acute stress can hinder the diagnosis of disease. Likewise, both acute and chronic distress can arise as a direct result and indirect result of various disease processes. So you can, if you're in pain a lot, that causes stress. Also, if somebody is giving you medication, or if you have to be hospitalized, that also can cause stress. Additionally, they talked about how we as veterinarians play an important role in diagnosing chronic stress by integrating information from learning, asking questions, getting a good history about the cat's social and physical environment at home, the cat's interactions and relationships with their person, the physical presentation, and complete medical history, not just doing an exam and blood work and the like tests. So also, Dr. Tynes said that fear and anxiety related behavior problems, mental or emotional illness, can lead to chronic stress, which can lead to physical stress. Conversely, many chronic medical conditions, as the previous speakers had said, can lead to anxiety, resulting in mental or emotional health problems. Mental and physical health are inextricably linked and requiring the ability to at least recognize, diagnose, and treat both to some degree. And treatment will often be unsuccessful if both the mental and the physical issues are not addressed. So we talk a lot now about using about cat-friendly practices and cat-friendly homes. So what sorts of things can we do there? But first, just to give you a tempting tidbit of what's coming up. But right now, mental and physical effects linked to stress result in the release of hormones, activation of the immune system, release of all kinds of pro-inflammatory chemicals, and changes in mood, depression, and the experience of pain. So these sickness behaviors that can come about, these things on the right, vomiting, diarrhea, fever, lethargy, all of those things can be a direct result from distress. So while while the cat's caregiver or as well as the veterinary team believe that vomiting, diarrhea, fever, all those sorts of things, sleeping more than normal, being lethargic, may be due to a physical thing, they may in fact be a reflection of distress, of psychological or mental pain. So in other words, what it may be worth reconsidering this whole this list of the increased risk from going outside. These things are true, absolutely, absolutely. But the increased risks from living indoors is a whole lot longer. In fact, there are still, like, the lower urinary tract diseases, idiopathic or interstitial cystitis, getting crystals in their urine, hyperthyroidism, being bored, inactive, decreased fitness, obesity, diabetes, which I've already mentioned, even resorptive lesions, which are like our cavities, except that they're not caused by bacteria. And we think that they're at greater risk of poison outside, but there's all kinds of poisons and household hazards inside too. Poisons include, things like lilies, Easter lilies, or other types of plants. Medications, for instance, I use an absorbable non-steroid, like I use some medication on my hands to help with my arthritis, and I wear gloves when I do after applying it, so that my cats don't lick my hands, because that would be toxic to them. Cleaning products, Lord knows all those cleaning products and things we have. Other household hazards include, swallowing small objects, even like hair ties or things that roll around, they bat around. Burns, stepping onto a burner, a hot plate on the stove. Secondhand smoke, the number one cause for, or pardon me, I shouldn't say the number one cause, but secondhand smoke, breathing smoke, causes cats to develop lymphoma, interestingly. Trauma, like they can still fall. They can fall from bookcases. They can fall from other things. They can get caught up in blind cords and strangle themselves. So they should always, the blind cords should be cut at the end. They can be electrocuted by chewing on wires. And then, as I already mentioned, problem behaviors and behavior problems. And then even some skin conditions the cats are at increased risk from living indoors. So this list is pretty darn long. It's pretty darn long. So it's not as simple black and white like we used to think. Well, what proof do we have for these things? I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over these, other than to show you, and you can look at these afterwards if you want. The papers are listed at the bottom. That, the one that I'd like to point out is that merely by making environmental modifications in a shelter, so not by changing the vaccination schedule, not by changing the disinfection regime, but just by giving cats toys to play with and giving the cats the ability to hide when they want to, the prevalence of colds decreased. Cats were more relaxed, and therefore adoption rates increased as well. So we need to really give cats things to do if we're going to keep them indoors. So how can we help cats express native or natural behaviors indoors? Well, two things. We want to decrease stress, and we want to improve and enrich the environment. So because I said, you don't want something that's unpredictable, but you also don't want things to be overly predictable. They don't want chaos, but they don't want to be bored either. So there was a superb article that you can absolutely get hold of readily on the AAFP website, which is catvets.com. If you go to guidelines, or if you go to education to guidelines, you can find this, the AAFP and ISFM Feline Environmental Needs Guidelines. And I'm going to go through these with you, albeit fairly quickly in the short time that we have. The first pillar of there's our 5 pillars for emotional, or for meeting environmental needs. And these are needs. This isn't environmental enrichment. We used to talk about environmental enrichment. This is just basic stuff, meeting their basic core needs. And the first one is to have a safe space. They need to be able to anticipate by having a vantage point or being able to check out ahead of time if there's danger around, and they have to have a quiet place to sleep. So one of the things that I do that isn't good is where when I feed my cats canned food, it's in the kitchen. The problem is that's also when I'm bustling around the kitchen making noises with pots and pans and things like that. So that's not ideal, and I need to stop doing that. The second environmental needs is that we provide multiple, so duplicates of resources, but also that they are separated. And the resources that cats need are they need to have food, water, litter, bed, a place to perch or observe. They need to be able to scratch, and they need toys. So they need multiple places to perch, multiple places to scratch, multiple places to eat, multiple places to drink. And these aren't all in one room. In fact, in this slide, you can see from this in this picture on the left-hand side is what we tend to do, where we will have food, water, toys, a bed, litter, and scratching surfaces all in one nice room, one nice area, or even, with a double dish where one side is food and the other side's water. Get rid of those, okay? Instead, what we want to do is have duplicates. So food, is have food, goodness gracious. Food, and where's the other food? There it is. Food, water, and water, toys, litter, and litter, bed, scratching, and scratching. So multiple and separated, because the way cats hunt, they don't hunt and then bring their animal, the critter back to where they're to a puddle. That's completely separate. And where they use the latrine or go to the bathroom, that's going to be wherever is a nice soft digging place where they're not too exposed, where they feel safe. But they do want to see what's around them. They don't want to be trapped by a hooded litter box. So the third environmental need is the opportunity for play and expression of predatory behaviors. Cats have to eat 8 to 10 small meals a day. Cats are not successful every time they hunt. In fact, they need to hunt about 10 to 15 times a day for a successful kill, for a successful meal. That means if you've got a really good hunter and they only need 8 meals a day, so you've got a really good hunter, that's 80 hunts for those 8 meals. That's a lot of strategizing, a lot of tactics, a lot of planning, a lot of exercise. Okay. And in between, when they're not hunting, they're, curled up on the fence or the picnic table or whatever, and their eyes are shut and it looks like they're sleeping. They're not. They're resting, but those ears are constantly moving, listening for the next possible meal, or that they don't become a threat, which might indicate that they're going to become a meal. So some cats prefer things that fly, and so we give them, the feathery wand types of things, and some cats prefer things that, motor along the ground, like mice do. The fourth environmental need is to have positive, consistent, and predictable interactions with humans. Just like us, this is really a no-brainer, but they need that predictability and they need consistency. Just like if you go into work and one day your boss is great, and then, for the next 3 days they're in a crummy mood, and then they're great for another stretch, and then they come in and they're furious and they just let everybody have it. You're on edge then, and that's just not a good thing. And the final one, and I kind of think this should be way higher up on the list, is an environment that respects the importance of a cat's sense of smell. Cats, because they mark their territory with their cheeks, you can see here marking this, leaving this brown greasy stuff, or with their pads, they're leaving visual marks, but also leaving pheromone from their scent glands, also leaving scent on each other and on us when they rub up against us. This is really, really important for cats. It's kind of like giving things the good housekeeping seal of approval. It's okay, it's safe. So this is very important. Please give them sturdy, non-sliding, not slippery surfaces that they can scratch. Really easy to just do make things like this. And don't ever wash this goop off or paint over it. It's like it'd be like you redecorating your house and then someone coming in and just moving your furniture all around and painting over it. That would be very, very rude. Okay, so physical, the environmental needs as well as enrichment, because we want to take it beyond just needs, meeting needs, that's in physical and social environments. So we want to give them variability to hopefully increase the diversity of their behaviors so that they're expressing more of their catness, so that they're, and I don't mean, what's the program called? Oh, well, it'll come back. Increase.
Hunger Games.
That's it. Thank you. Hunger Games. Thanks, JJ. Increase use of space. We want to enhance the human-cat relationship. So by doing things like when you trim their nails, they get treats. When you give them pills, they get treats. When you give them sub-Q fluids, they get treats. So really making sure that there's always, or that in our home, one of my cats is not food motivated. He wants strokes and he wants to be combed. So whatever it is to do that, improve. This will help him, the individual be better at coping with adversity, and decrease the expression of abnormal behaviors, including those things that we don't like, the problem behaviors that aren't abnormal, but we don't like when cats scratch our furniture or spray in the house. So back to the AAFP meeting, and another thing that this is Brenda Griffin said, that when cats are well adjusted and housing and husbandry meet their behavioral needs, they display a wide variety of normal behaviors, including a good appetite and activity level. Cats do not become less active as they get older. They still play at any age because that's part of hunting. So that's hardwired in them. They also are sociable, they groom themselves, and they have appropriate play behavior and sleep well. So given that, if you're living on the 21st floor somewhere, you can't let them outside. Can we somehow give them the best of both worlds in other ways? How can a cat have the natural stimulation of the outdoors while enjoying the security of the indoors and protecting wildlife? Well, certainly leash and harness. Some cats do really well on leash and harness. And the next slide, I'll show you a link to a really good really good information and video from the British Columbia SPCA on how to teach them to harness. You can use window boxes, even if you're way up on the 21st floor. You can create a catio on your balcony if you have a balcony, or in your garden. Then those are things, even if you're renting, you can do. You can create a tunnel, but it's so that the cat can get outside and then down to the main floor if you're on the second or third floor. There's cat secure fencing, cat doors, etc. So here at the SPCA BC .ca, they've got some wonderful videos on how to teach your cat to walk on a leash. And catios, in case the term is unfamiliar to you, can come in all kinds of, the sky's the limit in what you can design. Here you've got a window box on the left. Here you've got the cat flap is down here, and the cats can get into this enclosure with all kinds of climbing surfaces. And then on these shelves, they can go up over the door and into this other area here. The BC SPCA also has how to build a catio, some really good designs and things as well. And here's a really simple one that a friend of mine built. Let me just get my cursor where it needs to be. It's just on top of a shelf, and she just used an elbow, some type of plumbing elbow. And this board is on top of the shelf, and she's just put chicken wire around it. And Larry gets to go outside and smell the air and chase a leaf and see what's going on and be mentally stimulated, yet he's completely safe and also doesn't roam. Now, as far as cat-free fencing, or pardon me, cat protective fencing, that's all fine and well. It'll keep your cats in your garden, unless of course you have a tree in the middle of it, such as here, but it'll keep cats in your garden, but it won't of course stop them from hunting, because birds and rodents will still come into your, may come into your backyard. Now, remember, as I said, cats are both predators, but they're also prey. So we want to make sure that they're safe in that way too. So what impact do cats with outdoor access have on wildlife? There's no question. Cats definitely have impact on wildlife. And in fact, in Australia, it's really, really taken a toll. And they've in fact had a 2 million cat cull, which means catching and killing 2 million cats, which isn't something that is great at all. I'll refer you back to Dr. Hurley's presentation, which is, I believe, on the website, so you can access that. JJ, is that correct?
Yeah, it's on our YouTube channel, our Annenberg PetSpace YouTube. So
Fantastic. And because the feral cats threaten the survival of over 100 native species in Australia and have caused extinction of some of ground-dwelling birds and small to medium-sized mammals, they're a major cause of decline for many land-based endangered animals. Many native animals are struggling to survive, so reducing the number killed by this introduced predator, introduced by humans keep mucking things up, will allow their populations to grow. Was the belief, okay? And stay tuned to another slide on that one. So perhaps you have heard of these birds be safe collars. These collars are brilliant. Of my 3 cats, only one of them hunts birds, and so he wears one, and he does not catch birds anymore, because what these collars do, bells absolutely don't work. That's because birds really don't care about the sound. That doesn't alert them, but the movement of the color is what alerts them to a predator. And so that these things work extremely well, these birds be safe collars. They still have to, it's like a hair scrunchie, but no elastic in it, and you put it over a breakaway collar. So here's also another, if you just want to look for ideas or want to have somebody else build your catio, there's just all kinds of different things that can be done. Now, some good work's being done. Again, this is from the iCat Care website, the icatcare.org. And this was just not too many months ago, looking at a blog on cats, cat owners, and wildlife. And here, disagreements between cat owners on their pets' freedom, allowances, and conservationists concerned about wildlife killed by cats have been long running. And so the University of Exeter has been conducting research funded by Songbird Survival to understand how the cat parents in the United Kingdom perceive their cat's lifestyle. So this is, and they found a whole range of different lifestyles, and you can probably identify yourself on here somewhere, somebody who's really concerned about cats going outside and wants to protect the cats, and that's the one on the left. Then there's, the next one over, factor 2, is the freedom defender. Cats should be able to roam where they please like a wild animal and carry a gun too. Anyways, and sorry, political comment there, I apologize. And factor 3, the tolerant guardian, somebody who's, the benefits of roaming outweigh the risks of cats getting injured, and I love wildlife, and hunting is the least attractive part, but it's just what cats do. And then number 4 is, the conscientious caretaker, where cats should have access to outdoors, but I don't oppose some containment. Hunting by cats really worries me, etc. And then the laissez-faire cats, it's, just whatever they want to do is the way it goes. So, and therefore the messages that conservationists offer, or that have to be tailored to our different personalities and our different approaches. So the International Cat Care has suggested that we need to look at employing cat-friendly ways of reducing hunting, and the right interventions could improve wildlife conservation, maintain good cat mental well-being, and the like. And so here are the websites should you wish to look this up, and they're doing a really nice job on this. Now, this is quite interesting, and this just came out of the University of Exeter study, out of the University of Exeter, and it finds that play is a successful, non-restrictive way to limit hunting by cats. So if we play with our cats more, they are less likely to hunt. They'll get it out of their system, as it were. Remember, it is a natural thing. Cats have to be ready to hunt at any time, because if you need 8 to 10 meals and only 1 out of 10 or 15 15 times, you're going to be successful. That drive is constantly turned on. So increased play and feeding an animal protein-rich diet can effectively reduce hunting in cats. Cats are obligate carnivores. That means that they need meat protein, and that's just the way of it. And by meat, I mean include poultry and fish, but that is just the way of it. 5 to 10 minutes of daily play was associated with a 25% reduction in the number of prey animals brought home. Play designed to simulate hunting with wand and feather toy on a string, or given a mouse toy to play with afterwards to perform further hunting behaviors such as biting and kicking. They need to complete that behavior cycle. And Birds Be Safe collars reduced numbers of birds captured and taken home by up to 42%, but didn't affect the hunting of rodents. To which I'll say, hey, I'm fine with Jules bringing, killing mice, which makes me somewhat of a hypocrite. Now, this was I won't pull this up right now in interest of time, but I will ask because I want to take your questions. But if you might want to check out this very, very interesting link. This was a Nat Geo link, and it showed, in fact, that free-ranging cats, because Jekyll Island in Georgia is a protected habitat for migratory birds. It's really important. And by putting cameras on these cats' collars, they found that, hey, it's a lot easier to kill something that it doesn't fly away. So they mostly eat amphibians and insects, and they also eat, but very few birds. Now, this literally I just came across 2 days ago. And this is assisting evolution. How far should we go to help species adapt? Here back to Australia, where we've got this dreadful situation of an introduced small predator decimating ground-dwelling birds and small mammals. This was an Australian project to help threatened marsupial species adapt to avoid predatory cats, is among a host of assisted evolution efforts based on the premise that it is no longer enough to protect species from change. Humans are going to have to intervene to help them change. And so this is the researcher here, one of the researchers, Catherine Mosby, who says, I spent 15 years removing cats from fenced reserves and national parks. And then all of a sudden I was putting them back in. It felt very strange to be doing that. So instead of killing them, she's introducing them. A lot of focus has been on trying to come up with methods of killing cats better. Mosby, who holds a PhD in reintroduction biology, said, and we sort of started looking at it from the prey perspective. Like, what about if we make prey better? Will that help? Because ultimately coexistence is where we're trying to get to. We're not ever going to get rid of every cat in the whole of Australia. It's estimated that there are as many as 6 million feral cats and that they kill some 800 million native animals every year. Foxes, also introduced by the British, are very nearly as widespread. They are somewhat easier to control, though, because they more readily eat poison. Terrific. Now we introduce something and then we kill it. So the idea is to put enough pressure on the marsupials to produce behavioral or even better evolutionary change. So this is a whole different way of looking at things. And we all still need more data. We still need more data looking at the impact of cats on wildlife and the numbers of cats. And in Washington, D.C., there's the DC cat count, and they've got some absolutely great things going on there, information that they're collecting. But to get back to the indoor cat and the welfare of the indoor cat, no, this cat isn't caught, obviously. Though there are possible effects of indoor living include psychological and physiologic stress, which can result in problem behaviors, behavior problems, and even physical illness. And in fact, cats with lower urinary tract disorders, the main one, or the one that may not be what your cat has experienced or your friend's cat's experienced, but overall the main one is called interstitial or idiopathic cystitis. And that is an indoor cat thing. But even by giving cats who have this problem even access to the outside, the problem reduces dramatically. So owners who choose to keep indoor cats therefore have an increased responsibility to provide a rich and stimulating environment with plenty of appropriate outlets for performing natural behaviors. They're not just cuddly dolls, So which is better, indoor, outdoor? If we're going to keep them indoors, we must meet environmental and social needs. And remember that some cats never adapt. And our goal, of course, is to help our cats live longer, healthier lives. We want to create a culture of lifelong preventative health care and have them be happy. So our resources, rather than living in a padded solitary. So there's a whole bunch of resources there that you can check on, including meeting environmental needs guidelines, cat-friendly practice, cat-friendly homes, fear-free happy homes. The ISFM has a nice guide on feline stress and health. There's also, you can also check out for free cliniciansbrief.com. You just have to create a password and register, but there's no obligation with that. On an article by Dr. Buffington, who I mentioned before, what cat owners can learn about captivity. There's also in that article, you can get a household resource checklist to see how well you're doing and what you might want to think about changing. And then the how do I teach my cat to walk on a leash is also in there. There's also an article which you can readily access in multiple languages, not just in English. It's in this feline medicine issue, and there's an article that I wrote in there, optimizing an indoor lifestyle for cats. And if you want to know more about the Exeter study, here's the link for that as well. So with that, I think we still have some time for questions, and I am going to stop sharing my slides so that I can see you guys as opposed to just my slides. How's that sound?
That was wonderful. This is probably my favorite topic as a veterinarian. I love dentistry, but it comes second to making cats happier when they're living indoors. So that was really excellent. Thank you so much. So we're now gonna, as you mentioned, we're gonna open up the chat for questions. If you have a question, please use the chat function to submit it so I can read through it. You may choose the raise hand function as well, but preferably I would love to have the chat because then I only have to look at one area. And I know we've got a couple already. One thing I did want to mention, I don't know if you use this resource, but you mentioned Dr. Buffington, and his group has a great website that I refer to a lot. I don't know if you want to speak to it at all, but indoorcat.org, I believe it is.
Yeah, indoorcat at I think it's at osu.org. I didn't put that one in. It's not been updated too recently, but there's great stuff in there. And there's a really, really great program that he put out. It's an ebook, and it's an interactive ebook called Cat Mastery. And it's for tablets. I have it on my iPad, and it's really great. And so, like, it's got things where you click and there's a video of him speaking, or you click and there's somebody else talking about the best way to stroke a cat or hold a cat. There's sliders, so you can see what happens if you do, what happens if what does it mean when your cat's body posture is this or that or the other, and it's really great. So I think you can get it at the at the Apple or Android store. But it may just be Apple. I'm not 100% certain.
Okay.
But it's a great resource. But it's absolutely the indoorcat.edu.osu or something like that is the. If you go to the Ohio State University Indoor Cat, you'll find it.
Absolutely.
Actually, it's now called Indoor Pet. Indoor Pet. Talk about dogs too.
A couple of questions. What do you think about cat carriers as a method to taking them outside?
Okay, yeah, so that's a good one. And some adventure cats think this is totally cool. There are cat carriers with like backpacks, or where they've got sort of a bubble on them, and the cat can look out. Mm-hmm. If the cat's fine with that, great. Or if you take the cat out, let's say down to the beach in the days we could go outside, and socialize, it'll come again. Having the cat carrier, and if the cat, we want to make sure, and we should be doing in any case, so thank you for this question, making the cat actually enjoy and like their carrier. It shouldn't be something that only comes out when you're taking them on a trip, or taking them, worse still from their perspective, to the vet. And it should be something where the cat, it's a cozy place to curl up in, and they don't have to be I'm not super fond of soft carriers, because in a car accident they're a disaster. But one that my cats like to sleep in is, I'll just show it to you. it looks something like this, like it's a cheap knockoff of a sleepy pod, and you can maybe see there's a zipper, and so the lid just zips up on it, and meanwhile, and it also comes out to kind of wash or whatever. But something like this is really good because they sleep in it, they're comfortable in it, it's a cozy place. With a traditional hard-sided carrier, if you leave it out and put treats or catnip or food or whatever in there, and making it really comfortable with a blanket or a towel, then they like to go in it if it's not downstairs or in the attic or something like that. If it's where they like to be, then that makes it a lot easier. And absolutely, you can take them out in the carrier so that they can enjoy the great outdoors with you. But there's that whole other, I mean, that's a whole nother fun thing, is adventure cats, cats who kayak, cats who paddleboard, cats who go hiking, cats who do, you know, all those other different things, skiing even.
I've never had a cat like that before, but by the way, I was going to mention, I was very disappointed that a cat hasn't walked across your screen yet.
Well, because I fed them.
As a true cat person, they should be walking across your screen and
exactly
flicking their tail at us at every lecture.
I fed them beforehand.
Nice.
Yeah.
Until they're asleep.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question that I've not really, it's a little bit more on the nutrition side, but what are your thoughts about lab-grown meat being used for pet food? And there are some, and then there also, that's maybe one part. And the second part is there are some plant-based cat foods which emulate the nutrition that cats need, including synthetic taurine. Not something I'm very familiar with. I don't know if you have experience with that.
I can speak to the second part, but I don't, what was it? What was
the first one? Lab-grown meat being used for pet food?
No idea, other than the fact that lab-grown meat is horrifically expensive.
Right.
So I don't know, and that certainly has not been looked at because it's so expensive for feeding people that it's pretty unlikely to be used for feeding non-human companions. But as to the vegetable, unfortunately, there is no way to make, even with synthetic taurine, to make, it's not just taurine, it's the type of protein. They cannot, unlike us, you know, where we can just choose to be vegetarian or vegan, ovo-lacto-vegetarian or pescatarian or whatever. The cats' bodies simply do not do that. And the times I've seen cats that way, they have had all kinds of, you know, young cats have had all kinds of really serious problems. So, you know, if you're going to live with a carnivore, you have to feed them appropriately. Otherwise, it absolutely, it can cause serious problems for the cat you love, you know. And so that's not a thing to do. My kids are both veg. They feed their cats complete and balanced cat diets. So to that point, though, you know, if with feeding raw, for instance, raws can also be problematic. I mean, I absolutely admire the fact that people will go to these lengths and spend the money because feeding raw is not cheap. And we can learn a lot from how cats eat naturally, which is raw. But they catch it, they kill it, and they eat it right away. It doesn't go through a process, being processed by people, having their guts ripped out, if it's in the case of like chickens or something like that, being handled by more people, then being in a refrigerated truck with questionable, you know, temperature regulation, then being handled by more people, going into a store, and then, you know, sitting in the store, and then coming home and going into your freezer. So there are so many. If you want to feed raw, by all means, if you're prepared to have birds and mice around, to let them kill. Absolutely, that is the best way. That's nature's way of feeding them. But it's got to be killed right away, like killed and eaten right away by them.
I agree. Okay, I am getting so many questions here. A couple of questions that are of the same theme, but really about introducing cats to a new environment. For example, if you're moving, how do you minimize stress in that environment? And then similarly, yeah, well, let's start with that one first before I
really good question. So, you know, cats, because they are territorial, it's really hard for them. It's not like, yay, we're moving to a new place, I can hardly wait. I love the view and it's so close to, this, that, or the other, and I can't wait to get there. So that's not at all what it's like for cats. Certainly what I recommend doing is confining the kitty in one room, or cats in one room, while the rest of the place is being packed up. Okay. And then keeping them confined there while all the stuff is moving, if at all possible, or getting them into carriers at that point, if you're moving across the country or something, and can't do trips back and aren't doing trips back and forth. And then before you let them out of the carrier, set up one room that you're like, maybe it's the bedroom or something, that they like to hang out in, with unwashed sheets, unwashed towels, unwashed clothes, so that they have the familiar. And remember, the fifth environmental need was respecting the importance of the sense of smell. And so by making sure, because that's what connects them, it's not the same furniture, that's what connects them. And so to make sure that they have that continuity of experience. And then keep them in there until they're ready to come out. It's absolutely normal for cats to hide under the bed and then start coming out at night and exploring a bit, and then hide under the bed, and just adapt to that. Put the litter box in the bedroom or wherever it is that you've made their room, so that they feel safe.
Great. What about sort of obsessive compulsive type behaviors, eating cardboard, chewing on paper, or behaviors such as, a cat that just doesn't settle down and like bites your ankles as you're walking past? Are those cats that are releasing stress and they're just bored and they're just kind of, or what do you think?
They're different things. When you're looking at picas, which refers to the eating abnormal things that could be like wool sucking, and traditionally Siamese, but other cats with some Siamese in them will do that. Like it's almost like having moths. I mean, they eat holes in anything that's woolen. They may eat things like cardboard. That's not Siamese, that's anybody. That certainly is stress. The lashing out at you, swatting as you go by, that may be either displaced aggression, they're upset at something else. They could be really frustrated. I'd be thinking about that as being frustrated. And especially in a young cat, I'd be thinking, hey, this is a cat who actually needs more playtime, needs more interactions, or might actually benefit from another cat. The problem is, once you've adopted another cat, you can't return them. It's not, you don't take the second sibling back to the hospital, or shove them back from where they came from, because the first one doesn't like them. So you have to weigh that risk quite heavily. And there too, when you bring a second cat into the household, you want to put that second cat in just one room, because it's just like a baby. A baby doesn't know that there's stuff outside the playpen. They're perfectly fine in the playpen. That's their world. So you put a cat in one room, have everything in there for them, and don't let the original cat, your first cat or other cats, into that room, so that they have a safe space. But the other cats all of a sudden don't have an invader in their home, because it's yeah.
Speaking of perceived invaders, what do you think about having dogs in the home with cats? So one attendee asked, they have a young dog in the home and the two of them play, but then the play gets a bit rough and the cat is squeezing the puppy, and even sometimes the cat will hiss. Is he setting boundaries, or is he having a stress response, and vice versa?
He's setting boundaries, because cats, at least that would be my interpretation of that. We like to generalize, yet every situation is different. But with my generalization hat on, I'd say he is setting boundaries. And cats, rightly or wrongly, believe and know that they are the superior species. So as a consequence, dogs are allowed this much leeway. And if they cross that boundary, they'll get a fistful of nails across the nose, or get hissed at. So it's, as far as introducing a dog or introducing a cat to a dog's home, has to be done very carefully. I mean, some breeds of dogs, you absolutely can't be doing that, like Malamutes or something. They're just so primed to hunt. Nothing against Malamutes, but it's just like Malamutes and cats don't work together. Then other breeds work really well, and also different personalities. Again, some individual dogs or some individual cats are pretty laid back and others not so much. It's tough.
Okay.
It's
It
all
is
about
tough.
relationships. It's kind of like Tinder, I guess. You know,
I know. You're like, not that cat, not that dog, not that cat.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I know completely. Well, let me ask just one more question because
Sure.
we've gone a little over on time, and I really want to respect your evening. I know it's late. Actually, two more questions, but one I'm going to answer live right now instead of typing, so I can focus on you. But a person has adopted a cat who grinds their teeth. And I'm going to guess that we're going to say that we should get their teeth checked out because it's a possibility that they could have some dental disease. I've seen that a lot in cats with resorptive lesions. I don't know if you've seen that in any other scenarios.
Sure. It just like cattle and other species, cats can brux, and bruxing is often like grind their teeth, and that's often a sign of pain or discomfort. I'm
Pain.
not aware of cats doing that out of stress, although maybe
Yeah,
they
me too.
teeth grinder. I mean, when does your dentist not ask you, do you grind your teeth at night? To which you say,
Right.
I don't know, I'm asleep. And so he's not saying it, he's snoring.
Snoring.
Lucky that I'm asleep. So, but I grind my teeth. So, and why do we grind our teeth? Is that stress? I don't know. So, but when
Yeah.
cats grind their teeth, I'd be obviously looking for oral disease, oral dental disease, but I'd also be looking everywhere else for pain, because it can be a way of dealing with pain. It's just like, if you chew your fingernails, it's not because your fingernails hurt. It's because
Right.
it's related to something.
Display stress. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I apologize to the people that I didn't get a chance to answer your questions. I believe we have put our contact information in the chat, or we will shortly. So you can reach out to us if we didn't get a question answered. Sometimes when the questions are very specific to a certain situation, I'll just hold them and we can help answer them privately. But Dr. Scherk, thank you so much. That was really excellent. Thank you everyone for all your questions. As a reminder, the second part of this incredible wellness workshop series is going to be held 1 week from today, same time, on April 15th. You can use the same Zoom link that you used today to join us. And we recommend registering on Eventbrite if you haven't already, so you get the reminders that come as we get closer to the event. So before we wrap things up, I'd really like to extend an invitation to some of our upcoming events. For those of you with little ones, we're hosting a really fun virtual Earth Day celebration on April 22nd, complete with games and crafts and puppet shows and a live pet encounter. You can register for this free event on our website. Then we're going to have a really fascinating online Animal Matters session at the end of the month on April 29th. Doctors Meechin and Zazula will be giving us a special look at the mummified Ice Age wolf pup, Zur. I don't know if you saw that in the news several months ago. This 40,000-year-old mummified pup that was found, and other frozen fossils from the permafrost of the Yukon Territory. Their findings are really incredible, and I personally can't wait to see what they share with us. All of the registration links can be found on our website at www.annenbergpetspace.org. So thank you again, Dr. Scherk, for taking the time to share all of this great information with us. And thank you so much to all of our viewers for joining us this evening and continuing to support Wallace Annenberg PetSpace. And I hope to see you next week for part 2.
All about myths about cats.
Myths, yes. Yeah. It's going to be fascinating. Thank you again, Dr. Scherk, and good night, everyone.
Take care.